Mr. Speaker, I rise to have the second reading of the Prison Amendment Bill 2019. The bill is really a short one, and it is described as a bill to amend the Prison Act, Chapter 19.08. The amendment, the bill seeks to introduce two amendments. Well, there are several amendments, and I'll just go through these. An amendment of Section 2. The Act is amended in Section 2 by adding the following new definition in the correct alphabetical order. Commissioner of Corrections, which is the new title we would wish to confer to the most senior officer operating our prisons. It says the Commissioner of Corrections means to the officer appointed pursuant to Section 7, who is the person in charge of prisons or the person who manages the prisons in St. Christopher and Nevis. Clause 4, amendment of Section 7, and it says, the Governor General shall appoint a Commissioner of Corrections who shall be in charge of the prisons in the state and shall superintend and manage the same. Subsection 2, in addition to the Commissioner of Corrections, the Governor General shall appoint such other officers, including a Deputy Commissioner of Corrections, be an honorary chaplain as may be necessary for the efficient management of the prison. 3, the duties of the officers appointed by virtue of subsections 1 and 2 shall be such as may be prescribed by the rules under Section 26. Amendment number 5 relates to Section 9 and in particular Clause 9, subsection 3, which reads, a writ, warrant, or other legal instrument addressed to the Commissioner of Corrections and identifying that prison by its situation or by any other sufficient description shall not be invalidated by reason only that the prison is usually known by a different description. And 6, every prisoner shall be deemed to be in the legal custody of the Commissioner of Corrections. Amendment 7, amendment of Section 12 of the parent bill. The duty of the Commissioner of Corrections to deliver a calendar of prisoners. The Commissioner of Corrections shall, in relation to persons committed for trial before the High Court and confined to prison, deliver to the court a calendar of those persons. And then amendment of Section 55 in the original Act. This will then say that the Commissioner of Corrections shall cause to be affixed in a conspicuous place outside the prison a notice of the penalties to which persons committing offenses under Section 22, 23, and 24 are liable. This, Mr. Speaker, then, is really a matter of bringing what hitherto has been our prison system under a new regime of leadership and administration. And of course, our Prison Act goes back to 1955, I am advised, so it's about 60 years ago. And of course, that particular piece of legislation, just as we are doing with marijuana, and just as we are going to be doing with a number of pieces of laws, would need to be amended to reflect the new value system in vogue. And in this regard, Mr. Speaker, I want to draw reference to a quote from U.S. statesman Benjamin Franklin, who, commenting on the Constitution in 1789, had these words to say: "Our new Constitution is now established and has an appearance that promises permanency. But in this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes." End of quote. On hindsight, Mr. Franklin was speaking prophetically, since that very Constitution has been changed at least 27 times within the past 200 years. In other words, we have to make adjustment as time passes. The truth is, whatever is alive must endure some level of change if it is intended to survive and to be fit for purpose and fit for the times. Our laws must continue to adapt and be adapted as we ourselves move through life and times, and all the imperatives of staying current and relevant and in tune with the evolutions in our democratic construct. Mr. Speaker, the proposed amendment before the House is not a difficult one and is intended simply to update certain references in the law to bring them more in keeping with contemporary practices. In this case, the reference in the Prison Act to the position of Superintendent of Prison is being proposed to be amended to be Commissioner of Corrections, and hence thereafter, wherever the former would appear, it would be replaced by the new nomenclature of Commissioner of Corrections. Mr. Speaker, this is more the modern expression that reflects the enhanced role and responsibility and duty of the office holder. It is intended, Mr. Speaker, or we in the Team Unity Administration are hoping to initiate a major reform process of the current approach to incarceration of prisoners, their treatment during their time in custody, as well as to deal with the matter of rehabilitation. My government wants to create a more ennobling society, kinder, gentler, more forgiving, and more empowering. And the traditional punitive conception of our prisons and the attitude that those who inhabit our prisons are societal outcasts must no longer have currency and relevance. A new kind of enlightened leadership is required to lead our prisons, and the use of the now more modern descriptor as Commissioner of Corrections is in keeping with the new ethos of rehabilitation, reducing recidivism, and empowering inmates to face society anew and better adjusted. 3 countries in CARICOM, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, and Jamaica, have already moved to upgrade the administrative structure of their prison services and have appointed a Commissioner of Prisons as head of their prison service. I will, for the purposes of this act, indicate that the model which most impressed us has been that of Trinidad and Tobago. And although the prison service in Trinidad and Tobago serves a much larger prison population, we can be guided, and we have been guided by the basic structure and the strategic objectives that guide its operation. The Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service, as is ours, is an arm of the criminal justice system, and like St. Kitts and Nevis, is a division of the Ministry of National Security. It employs both prison officers and civilians to enable its efficient functioning and performance of a range of tasks related to its mandate of holding and treating incarcerated prisoners. The prison service, therefore, is a unique entity, and in that its operations are neither fully military nor civilian. In the course of its operation, it reflects both. Some of the senior officers are commissioned officers, just as in the military, ranging from the superintendent of prisons up to commissioner of prisons. The amendments to the Prison Act makes provision for a commissioner of corrections who will have overall responsibility for the prison, a deputy commissioner of corrections who will be given responsibility for designated operations, and a chaplain who can provide spiritual and counseling support for inmates to prepare them and assist the reintegration process. The bill, therefore, takes us further on our journey as a civilized people, making determined efforts to utilize our limited human resources in ways that conduce to the peace and prosperity of the land. I therefore move, Mr. Speaker, that this bill will have safe passage.